guys. Welcome back to For I Have Sinned. My name is Jess.
And this is Lauren.
And we are back with our episode 1 redo, Andrei Chikatilo, but it's part 2 because there's so much information. So, yeah.
Because this guy does a lot of bullshit.
He really, really does. Me and Lauren are a little bit slap happy tonight, so
Sorry.
I think it took us like a good 2.5 minutes to actually record the intro, but we got it.
Yeah, third time's the charm.
Anyway, if you guys are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, stay in the loop. And for everyone else, you'll get notified when a new episode is up if you subscribe to us.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just get right into it because there's a lot. Because there's probably going to be a part 3. So,
I'm so proud of you.
No, there is going to be a part 3 because I only wrote for a part 2 because I wanted to stop for a part 3. But yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
Yes.
All right, so where we left off last time, Chikatilo committed his first murder of a 9-year-old girl named Yelena Zakotnova in his little secret house. And a neighbor named Alexander Kravchenko was blamed for it. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys remember, I said how he had an alibi because he was home with his wife and her friend, but then they said that there was blood on the wife's apron that matched both his wife and Yelena Zakotnova. So the neighbors verified that he was home. So that's where we left off. So even though the neighbors verified that Kravchenko was home during the time of her murder, Yelena's murder, police threatened his wife with being an accomplice to murder. Oh, hi, Tyrion. I feel like it's always at the beginning.
It never fails.
So police threatened his wife with being an accomplice to murder and her friend with perjury. As a result, the women changed their story and now claim that Kravchenko didn't return home until late at night on the day of the murder. So that's just so fucked up. Like, and I mean, stuff like that still happens, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's So when Kravchenko found out about this information, he confessed to the killing, most likely to save his wife, or he panicked, or both. And he was tried for the murder in 1979. At the trial, he retracted his confession and maintained his innocence, stating his confession had been taken while under extreme duress and pressure, which is not uncommon.
I was going to say that also happens.
Yeah, that makes me think of the kid from the West Memphis 3.
Yes.
That I think they questioned him for like 12 hours, and he was, like, he already had some like mental what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say something offensive. He had like the mind of a 10-year-old, I think they said, or something like that. And he was like 16 or 17.
Okay.
But anyway.
So he was like a little like developmentally behind.
Developmentally challenged, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. My God, I couldn't think of the word. Or the phrase. Anyway, so Kravchenko was still found guilty and he was sentenced to death. In 1980, his sentence was reduced to 15 years imprisonment, which is, at the time, the max length of time he could stay in prison. I don't know if that's changed, but a lot of those other countries, it's like their prison time, even for murder, is like nothing.
Yeah. It's weird. And actually, tangent, but this is something that I've been looking into quite a bit, and not to get all political, but the United States actually has the highest rate of incarceration in the entire world. So I don't know if we're just so used to the sentencing here that everywhere
That
else
could
it
be
seems
it.
so lenient, but
That could
it's
be it. And
yeah,
especially just all the unnecessary incarceration for like weed and
sure,
like depending on who you
non-violent
are.
offenses, yeah,
Right.
victimless crimes, yeah, absolutely.
Depending on depending on
Ooh.
who you depending on who you are. I told you we're slap happy. Um, if you're a person of color, you're probably going to get more time
Sure.
for drugs than a
A
white
lot of
person.
a lot of those laws were written to specifically target people of color, but I
Yeah.
digress. This is something that I'm
Yeah, we could go on and
passionate
on.
about as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes. I mean, let them out.
yeah.
Jeez,
Yeah,
don't. All right, let's not go
I know.
there.
I could do a whole episode on just that, honestly. uh,
All right, so anyway, his sentence was
15
reduced to
years.
15 years, but then Kravchenko was retried due to Yelena's relatives pressuring the Supreme Court. And now I know in America you can't be retried for the same crime, right? Like
Double
once,
jeopardy. Yeah, if
yeah,
there's no new evidence.
right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was erroneously convicted and he was executed by firing squad in July of 1983.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So
yeah, I mean, this guy obviously was not, a saint because he
sure.
had already been in jail for rape and I believe murder. But I mean, it's just like, oh, well, that guy has a record, so we're just gonna pin it on him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we see things like that happen as well here too, and in other
Oh yeah.
cases similarly where like um with Anthony Sowell, the women that came forward and made complaints, they had criminal histories, so they were just disregarded and their statements just went in the trash.
Right, right. Um, so meanwhile, on September 3rd, 1981, Chikatilo came across Larissa Tkachenko, a 17-year-old boarding student, at a bus stop in Rostov city center. According to Chikatilo, he lured her to a forest near the Don River with the pretext of drinking vodka and relaxing. When they reached a secluded area, he threw Larissa to the ground, tore off her clothes, and attempted to rape her. Trigger warning, there's going to be some gross stuff in this episode. Did I just lose my spot? Okay, so Larissa fought back, and Chikatilo, of course, could not achieve an erection. He forced mud inside her mouth to stifle her screams, and then battered and strangled her to death. He had no knife on his person, so he resorted to mutilating the body with his teeth and a stick.
Yeah.
He tore one nipple from Larissa's chest with his teeth before loosely covering her with leaves, branches, and torn newspaper. Her body was found the following day. Dude is not even like trying to conceal these bodies well,
Yeah. Yeah.
The psychology that goes behind like tearing a woman's nipple off with your teeth is I don't even want to go there.
I know.
So on June 12th, 1982, 9 months after the murder of Larissa Tkachenko, Chikatilo traveled to the Bagayevsky district of Rostov by bus to purchase vegetables. In the village of Donskoy, he got off to change. I said that like a question because I wasn't sure if I was pronouncing it correctly.
Girl, you're doing better than me.
I'm doing better than usual, maybe because I said a lot of these names on the original first episode.
Yeah, you had a little practice.
I had practice. He got off to change buses, but then decided to walk instead. He encountered Lyubov Biryak, a 13-year-old girl who was walking home from a shopping trip. They walked together for about a quarter of a mile until their path was hidden by bushes from the view of potential witnesses. Chikatilo jumped on Lyubov, dragged her into nearby bushes, tore off her dress, and killed her by stabbing and slashing her to death while he mimicked raping her. She was found on June 27th. The medical examiner found 27 knife wounds to the head, neck, chest, and pelvic region. Wounds found on her skull suggested she was attacked from behind with the handle and blade of the knife. And in addition, several striations were found upon her eye sockets.
Whoa.
Yeah. Vicious. Following Lyubov's murder, Chikatilo no longer tried to resist his homicidal urges. Between July and September of 1982, he killed 5 more victims from the ages of 9 to 18. He approached children, runaways, and young vagrants at bus or train stops and would lure them to a nearby forest or another secluded area. He'd kill them usually by stabbing, slashing, and eviscerating them with a knife. Some victims were strangled or battered to death in addition to receiving multiple knife wounds. So he like doesn't really have that much of a pattern. I mean, the knife is like his dick, but you know, I mean, some of them, it's not like just children, it's not just women.
Yeah,
the only
he's
thing
more
is
like
it's not
opportunistic.
Yeah. The only thing is it's not straight men. That's it. Straight adult men.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean there are a few patterns that we'll see, but here like this, many of the victims' bodies bore evidence of mutilation to the eye sockets. Leading investigators came to the conclusion that the killer gouged out the eyes of his victims. Now, there's a Russian folk superstition that if you kill someone, the view of the killer remains on the victim's eyes.
Yeah.
Chikatilo claimed this was why he mutilated his victim's eyes, but then later he said it was for his own peace of mind.
Well,
I
that
think
that kind of makes sense, though, for his own peace of mind that he couldn't be caught if they examined the dead body's eyes.
Right, but I
like
think
the image in a literal sense.
Right, but I think he tried to take it back and say, like, no, that's not why I did it. It was just for my own peace of mind. But I think that it was because of that Russian folktale, because
Sure,
he just seemed like the type of dude that would be superstitious like that. You know what I mean?
And beyond superstition, it's also symbolic. The last images that they saw were him doing horrific fucking things to them. So it's also like I could see that for
It's him
maybe
kind of being ashamed.
Right, and that maybe that's what he meant by for peace of mind. That he
Yeah.
kind of erased that by taking out their eyes.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like seeing, because I'm sure that the majority of their eyes were open when they were being killed, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's creepy. If you have any sort, I mean, I don't know what he would be classified as far as like psychopath, sociopath, but if he had any sort of, you know, empathy at all, looking at the victim's eyes, that's got it. Yeah. I don't know. That's just so
it's
fucking
crazy.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Chikatilo's adult female victims were usually sex workers or homeless women whom he would lure to secluded areas with the promises of money or alcohol. He would attempt intercourse, almost always being unable to achieve or maintain an erection, and this would send him into a murderous rage, especially if the woman made fun of his impotence. He could only reach orgasm when he was stabbing his victims to death.
Yeah, that's something that I was going to mention, but of course I just was patient and I waited for you to get to it. But all of the other victims, that's why they had those knife wounds, because he literally couldn't achieve orgasm, right? Like at all, unless he was stabbing them.
Right. At first it was just like when he was younger, it was like the struggling to get away from him. But then it turned into, now he, you know, once he got his taste of killing.
Oh yeah, full on escalation.
Yeah, it was just, like I said, it was like his knife was taking the place of his dick.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Chikatilo's child and adolescent victims were both male and female. His tactic was luring them with either offering to show them a shortcut or for a chance to see rare stamps, films, coins, candy, or food. I think in particular bubblegum was like rare in the area.
Sure, you have to consider the time and the climate of what was going on there at the time. So it's really sad that these kids were like, "Oh, cool." It's just horrible.
Cool stamps, coins,
Oh,
like
and right,
candy.
like what an innocent thing.
I know, I know. It's like the old saying, what is it with strangers with candy, don't accept candy from strangers or something like that. What is the saying?
Yeah, never take candy from a stranger or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
Yeah,
like that. Strangers and candy, whatever.
I don't know.
Now I just think of that show, Strangers
Right.
with Candy.
Yes.
um, so he would overpower them. He'd usually tie them up before stuffing mud or loam in their mouths to silence their screams. So that's like another pattern. He did that a lot. He
Yeah.
would shove just whatever he could find, grass, dirt, mud, into their mouths, and then proceed to kill them.
And most
Chikatilo
of
rarely,
most of the attacks
no, go
took place outside, right?
yeah, like in the woods.
Yeah, almost all of them, I think, except for like the
I'm
first
pretty
one.
yeah, except for yeah, the one that was in his house,
Yeah.
in his secret house, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all in like secluded areas, forests, and he was traveling places, so
Sure. Yeah.
that's how he was able to get away with a lot of it.
Yep.
Um so Chikatilo rarely made any serious effort to conceal his victims' bodies before leaving the crime scene, which I said before. On December 11th, 1982, Chikatilo encountered a 10-year-old girl named Olga Stalmachenok, yes, that's right, who was riding a bus to her parents' home in Novoshaktinsk.
Hmm.
These names. Um, he persuaded her to leave the bus with him, and she was last seen by a fellow passenger who stated that a middle-aged man led her away by hand. Now, this is the other thing. He looked
I'm
like
sorry, I just
grandpa.
started laughing, not at it on the screen. Tyrion's face, he was like looking directly at the camera, and then I started laughing, but it was at a really bad time in the story. I I apologize.
It's
Oh boy. He just was sitting behind me. He was just like staring at the camera. I
He's like, there
apologize.
I am.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Um, so yeah, so here's the thing. He looked like a grandpa
Yeah,
at this
right.
time, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
He had, graying hair, he had big thick glasses, and he didn't look like a monster. He didn't look scary until he was in court,
Yeah.
but we'll get into that later,
Oh God,
or
yeah.
on the next episode. Um, so yeah, so I said, yeah, a fellow passenger who stated that a middle-aged man led her away by hand. Chikatilo lured Olga to a cornfield, stabbed her around 50 times in the head and body, ripped open her chest, and excised her lower bowel and uterus. Um, by January 1983, there were four more victims. A Moscow police team led by Major Mikhail Fedosov was sent to Rostov-on-Don to direct the investigation. This became known as Operation Forest Path. Clever. A team of 10 investigators was established to solve all four cases. In March of 1983, Fedosov assigned a newly appointed specialist forensic analyst, Viktor Burakov, to the investigation. Now, this dude, Viktor Burakov, is going to be play a big part. A month later, Olga Stolmachenok's body was found. Burakov went to the crime scene where he examined the numerous knife wounds and eviscerations, plus the striations on her eye sockets. It wasn't until June 1983 that Chikatilo struck again. Laura Sarkeesian, a 15-year-old Armenian girl, was found near an unmarked train platform near Shakhty. By September, he killed 5 more. He's just going nuts.
It's weird that he had that like kind of cooling down period after a particularly gruesome murder. Like I feel like that one kind of stands out because he actually removed organs from the victim's body, and then he just kind of laid low for a little while. It's almost like that escalation held him over for a little bit longer.
And I wonder if it has anything to do with, because, he was traveling for his job. I wonder if maybe, he didn't have, it was like periods where he didn't have to travel that much and
Oh yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
stayed close to home or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he did kill some people nearby, but I don't think it was as many. I don't know. So by September, he killed 5 more. All of the bodies found and the similarities between their wounds forced Soviet authorities to acknowledge that a serial killer was on the loose. And this, I'm pretty sure, was the first time that I think he's considered like Russia's first serial killer, I believe.
Yeah. And that's something that I liked that they kind of portrayed in Citizen X, where they were like,
yeah.
I mean, because at this point he's had at least 30 victims or so.
Close to it, at least. Yeah.
A lot. 30 victims in all similar style that they've, been cut, markings.
And I mean, the eye sockets in particular.
That alone. Right. And Russia was just like, nah, it's not the problem. Like,
no problem. Check homosexuals. Go to bathhouse.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that's how you know it was bad, when Russia finally had to admit that they had a problem. And the thing in the movie Citizen X is it kind of shows that conflict where they're like, there is no problem. We don't need to take any further action,
Yeah. And then the guy, Burakov, he's like fighting with like the committee.
Yeah. He really pushed for it.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for him, who knows how much longer this would have gone on,
Seriously. Yeah.
Because everyone else, they were like heading in a complete different direction that was wrong.
Yep. Yep.
So something. Oh yeah. So what? I didn't finish my sentence. This was the first time they finally had to acknowledge that a serial killer was on the loose, which is something they had been in denial about for a while.
There you go.
Police theorized that the killings were done either by a group harvesting organs or that good old satanic panic.
Oh, wow.
Or satanic cult. Because that was about around that time that satanic panic became a thing, right? Like
mid-80s, wasn't it?
Mid-80s, yeah, I think so. Up until sometime in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
They also thought, it could be a mentally ill individual. Police effort mostly concentrated upon the theory that the killer must be mentally ill, gay, or a pedophile, and the alibis of all individuals who had either spent time in psych wards or had been convicted of homosexuality or pedophilia were checked. Which, by the way, homosexuality was not removed from the Russian list of mental illnesses until 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, so
it was still a crime too, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was a crime until 1999, but it was definitely listed as a mental illness.
Yeah.
So I guess you could be convicted of it, but you'd be sent to a psych ward, Russian authority, and by the way, Russian authority refuses to register LGBT organizations to this day.
Still going on.
Yeah. Beginning in September of 1983, several young men confessed to the murders. Although these individuals were usually intellectually disabled youths who confessed, quote unquote, only under prolonged and often brutal interrogation, which is just so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like these kids are disabled, whether like intellectually disabled, and you're you're putting them under this stress that you're probably making them believe that they really did do this, you
Right.
know?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's fucking infuriating.
That's what happened with the Stephen Avery case that Making a Murderer was based on. The nephew, he had an IQ that was very low. What was his name? Brandon Dassey. And
Yeah.
there was video of it, of the police coercing him and even coaching him in what to say. And it was like they just kept saying it to him and saying it to him and saying it to
Yep.
him until he couldn't tell the difference as to what was real and what was being fabricated. So that's a technique that
And
is
again, I'm going to bring it back to Jesse Miss Kelly from the West Memphis 3.
Yeah.
They played the recording in court, and it was like, so at 8:30 in the morning, you were here, right? Yeah, I was here. So you couldn't have been there because the kids were in school. So at like 12, you were in the woods with Damien and what was the other guy's name? Jason, I think. Yeah. It was noon that we were there. Well,
Yeah.
no, because the kids were still in school, so it had to be around like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Yep,
Yeah.
it was.
He just went with everything. Same thing with Dassey. Literally
Mhm.
same exact thing where
That's right.
whatever
I forgot about that.
they led him, and same exact thing where they'd be like, "Oh, well, well, maybe you didn't see that. Maybe you saw this instead." "Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did." And you can, I mean, it's just that painfully obvious that they were leading them.
Yeah, and I think that would be hard for anybody, but for someone who is intellectually disabled, they have a low IQ, whatever it may be,
And a kid,
I
they
think
don't
it's
know.
yeah, right. I think it just gets to the point where you're just like, and I think they also say stuff, like if you tell us this, like we'll let you go,
Mhm.
So I think it's just all the pressure and not really understanding what's going on, and you're there for hours and
Oh
hours and
yeah.
hours
Oh
being,
yeah.
yeah.
False
So
confessions
it's
happen way more often than you
a
would think.
lot,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yep.
People don't realize that.
Nope.
Um,
Google
Googs it.
it.
Uh, that was so corny. Uh, so as a result, and this is so fucked up. As a result of all of this, 3 known gay men committed suicide. But also as a result of the investigation, on a lighter note, more than 1,000 unrelated crimes, including 95 murders, 140 aggravated assaults, and 245 rapes were solved.
Oh wow.
So that's something.
Yeah, it's almost like they had to do actual police work.
Yeah,
Weird.
right. As police obtained confessions, bodies continued to be found, proving that
Ugh.
those who confessed to the murders could not be the killer they were looking for. On October 30th, 1983, the eviscerated body of 19-year-old sex worker Vera Shevkin was found in Shakhty. She had been killed on October 27th. The wounds were again similar to the other victims, but her eyes had not been removed or wounded. So that's why I say it doesn't seem like he has like a definite pattern. It's
Sure.
like it's stuff is similar, but then it's like maybe he's just like, I don't need to do that, like
Yeah. Yeah. Or do you think he was purposely trying to mislead them? Like mislead authorities
maybe.
by not
I mean,
doing those like trademark things?
he was, he wasn't a dumb dude,
Right.
you know.
He was a
He
teacher, right?
he was a teacher. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't a good teacher, but
Sure.
that was because of his awkwardness and um, low self-esteem,
Yeah.
but I mean, he did really well in school. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he had a above average IQ. I would have to double check, but he's not dumb.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that paired with this Russian, these Russian higher ups who just don't want to do the actual work and admit that there's a serial killer.
Yep.
Or listen to trained professional, is just a recipe for disaster. So,
as we always see, it's sort of that like a perfect storm situation.
But I feel like this is almost like in its own like realm of insanity.
Oh yeah.
So 2 months after that, Sergei Markov, a 14-year-old Gukovo schoolboy, was found on December 27th. He was lured off a train and murdered at a rural train station near Novocherkassk. Sergei was castrated and suffered over 15 knife wounds to his neck and upper torso area before being disemboweled.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In January and February of 1984, Chikatilo killed 2 women in the Park of Aviators, which was an urban forest located in Rostov. Then on March 24th, he lured Dmitry Tashnikov, a 10-year-old boy, away from a stamp kiosk in Novoshakhtinsk. The stamps are like a big thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Several witnesses noticed Chikatilo walking with Dmitry and were able to give a detailed description of him to investigators. 3 days later, Dmitry's body was found, along with the killer's footprint and semen and saliva on the victim's clothes. So here's another thing that's fucking annoying. There's multiple witnesses have given descriptions of Chikatilo from the first murder. But there's still, nope, we got to look for all the gay people and all the intellectually disabled people and all the mentally ill people and all the pedophiles. I mean, obviously he's a pedophile, so like that makes sense, but
sure. It's almost like they exploited it as an excuse to harass these other people.
Yeah. On May 25th, 1984, a young woman named Tatiana Petrosian and her 10-year-old daughter were killed by Chikatilo. Tatiana actually knew Chikatilo for years prior to her murder in Shakhty. So I believe that she was a sex worker and she was like out with her daughter, and I guess he offered her money or something like that. So I believe that the daughter waited like in one area while they went off into another area of the woods, which great parenting. But but I mean, whatever. So he killed her and then killed the daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Which it just, I don't know why, for some reason that hits me hard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah. By the end of July, 3 more women were killed by Chikatilo between the ages of 19 and 21. And then a 13-year-old boy was also murdered. Shut up, Tyrion. It's cool. During the summer of 1984, Chikatilo stole 2 rolls of linoleum from his job, and he was then fired. He found another job as a supply clerk on August 1st in Rostov. On August 2nd, 16-year-old Natalia, this one's tough. Natalia Golosovskaya,
perfect,
was killed in the Park of the Aviators. On August 7th, he lured 17-year-old Ludmila Alexeyeva to the banks of the Don River on the pretense of showing her a shortcut to a bus station. Ludmila suffered 39 knife wounds to her body before Chikatilo mutilated and disemboweled her. She was found the next morning, and her excised upper lip was in her mouth.
Whoa.
Yeah. Chikatilo flew to the Uzbek capital of Tashkent on a business trip. And by the time he returned to Rostov on August 15th, he killed an unidentified young woman and a 10-year-old girl named Akmaril Seydzalieva. Within the next 2 weeks, 11-year-old Alexander Chapel was found just yards from where Ludmila Alexeyeva's body was found earlier. Alexander was strangled and castrated, and his eyes were gouged out. Chikatilo then killed a young librarian named Irina Luchinskaya in the Park of Aviators on September 6th. So he just, throughout this time, he just went on a complete, like,
spree.
Insane just a rampage, like,
yeah,
crazy fucking rampage. I'm gonna end it there for part 2.
Okay.
Because there's still a lot left, and if I edit it all in this one, it would be like probably an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I think the longest we really like to go is around an hour. But
sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, thoughts on this. Just I know this case so well, and no matter how many times I read about it or watch something about it, because I did watch Citizen X again before. It was either before part 1 or right after part 1.
Okay.
And it just still affects me so much. It's fascinating. It's fucking terrifying. It's ugh.
Yeah, it's really horrifying. The last victim that you had just mentioned was Ludmila?
No, hold on.
Oh, Akmaril?
Irina Luchinskaya.
Okay. So just for curiosity's sake, I pulled up a list of the victims, and Irina is number 32. So that's
okay.
the count that we're up to just in this short time.
Yeah. And I mean, spoiler alert, but whatever. I think he was I think it ended up his number ended up being between 53 and 56 or something like that.
Yeah.
That they know of.
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was probably a lot more. I mean, or I wouldn't be surprised, because I mean, maybe he did conceal some bodies really well,
Yeah, or there were just ones that were never found.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk about it because we'll talk about it in part 3, but
okay.
It's just, I can't even imagine these poor kids, especially.
Yeah.
Like this like, nice little old man. Well, not little. I think he was very tall, actually. But just this grandpa looking guy.
Yeah, he's just very unassuming. Like, he didn't look anything out of the ordinary, especially for the time.
Yeah, and even though he was a shit teacher, he knew how to talk to kids.
Yeah. He had 2 kids of his own, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's what's interesting to me is that his self-esteem was so low, and he was so awkward, like growing up and as a teacher, even, like we covered in the first episode, his students basically walked all over him. And
right.
With this, it's like he's got like charm and confidence, and I think it really just, all it has to do with is I'm gonna come,
right.
I'm gonna come, I'm gonna orgasm. So
right.
I think that's really what it has. I think it's just he's just a straight up sexual deviant. That's what I think.
Yeah, he needs to go to horny jail, and instead he just kills people.
He's just disgusting.
Yeah,
he was
fucking gross.
Fucking gross. But yeah, so I guess we'll end it there and join our Patreon. I've kind of been slacking, but I promise this week I will get back on it. It is forihavesinnedpod.com/patreon. No, patreon.com/forihavesinnedpod.
Flip it.
Just flip it around. And subscribe to us on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere else: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Are we anywhere else? I don't think so. No. We should be everywhere else, though. We should get on that. Although I don't really know anybody that, like, I barely even know anyone that listens to Stitcher. So
yeah, no, I think there's Google has like a Google version of Apple Podcasts, so that should be one that we could.
Yeah, we'll look into that. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you know what we always say: stay safe,
wash your hands,
and please don't kill your family.
Yeah, like don't kill your family.
Don't gouge people's eyes out.
Don't kill anybody else's family.
Yeah, just don't substitute a knife for your dick.
Yeah,
that's just not good for anybody.
I was gonna say, like, I'm not here to kink shame. If knife dicks are your thing, just get like a knife-shaped dildo.
Yeah,
and that could be your knife.
Or
dick.
You know what? Like, find a partner who's consensual and likes knife play, because there are safe ways to do that.
Yeah, just get on FetLife, put it out there, and you'll find
exactly. Exactly. People, there's somebody into something that somebody else is into. So
there's someone for everyone.
There's a person for us all. All right, guys.
Bye, guys.
We'll talk to you or see you soon. Bye, sinners.